Hello YouTube, this is Wakia Lion coming to you pre-record from my camper. This video is going to talk about the contrasts between our current economic system and Chaldeanism's economic system, using Chaldeanism as the framework to give the arena shape. The one that we currently use is designated the purpose or Jupiterian based system, and the one I advocate for is the prudent or Saturnian based system. I recommend getting a piece of paper and pencil to follow along and keep track. Let's begin. These economic systems are the way that they are because of how we, as a species, measure something's worth. The Jupiterian based system is higher demand equals higher value, higher efficiency equals lower prices. The Saturnian system is higher demand equals lower value, and higher efficiency equals higher prices. I'm going to clarify the terminology that I will use during this video to help ease any confusion, and because the terminology is pertinent in understanding what the actual priorities are of these two systems. To clarify my use of these four words, efficiency equals the item's ability to meet demand in total, being able to save in the 3 points of the Holy Triad: space, time, and energy. Price equals the numeral worth we stick on an item in whatever way it is measured. Demand equals the insatiable hunger, whether it is natural or artificially induced. Value equals the item's worth based on the individual's irrational perspective, designated as their vanity and envy. I also want to make this statement before we move on to give a hint why this problem needs to be addressed and taken seriously. Just because something was efficient to produce does not mean it will have a natural price, and just because something has a demand doesn't mean it has life-affirming value. When thinking about these two systems, working off the Chaldean dichotomy system, I figured that there's only 4 ways to which both these economic systems can function. These are high demand, high efficiency; low demand, high efficiency; high demand, low efficiency; and low demand, low efficiency. These 4 states are the directions by which an economy can go in both systems. What makes both systems different is in how their two dichotomies work. Jupiter is a tug of war between demand and efficiency, while Saturn is a shoving contest between the two forces. As discussed in the previous video, the reason why purpose is unhealthy is because it's a tug of war between an unstoppable force and a movable object. What seems to happen is that efficiency is eventually tugged along with demand into a state of constant, unchecked growth that becomes mutable or prone to mutation, and therefore liable to both self-destructive tendencies and cancerous growth. Prudence, however, turns that tug of war against itself, forcing one side to fight the other in a constant state of domination and survival. The friction between the two then creates, hypothetically, a perfect balance of utmost efficiency and tempered demand. I'm going to discuss the 4 economic states next, starting with Jupiter. High demand, high efficiency correlates to higher value, lower prices. This is the ideal state that we strive for in the Jupiterian system. Higher value makes prices irrationally rise, while higher efficiency seeks to lower those prices to meet demand. This creates the growth at all cost mentality, where, for good or for ill, growth and production has to constantly be maintained to keep an economy alive and influential in the world. A business, as an example, has to keep this up in order not to stagnate and flatline their income, enforcing a need to constantly keep demand high and to properly reduce their efficiency in order to artificially induce demand and their prices. The other effect of this is that it heavily incentivizes growth, which forces progress. Whether that's good or not is up to the evaluator to decide. Higher demand, lower efficiency correlates to higher value, higher prices. As discussed earlier, this is the way that companies keep demand irrationally high by kneecapping their production in some way, shape, or form. This can either be by making lower quality products, decreasing production, hiding the material away in storage, throwing away excess material, and using marketing to inflate the value more and sell cheaper goods at higher prices. This is a very parasitic system and very self-destructive and wasteful. It's also a system that enforces what is known as boom-bust cycles, where something is so irrationally valued that it collapses under its own weight, possibly bringing many other industries, if not the whole economy, with it. This is also the system that causes inflation. 3. Lower demand, higher efficiency correlates to lower value, lower prices. This is where a product completely collapses, becoming so common that it's no longer valuable or was never valuable to begin with. This incentivizes high demand marketing to sell the product, regardless of its use, to people willing to pay that, or it has to artificially induce demand. Something like additives or cheap, crappy food are a perfect example of this. This also correlates to people selling very common things like video games at marked up prices to induce irrational price gouging from people who are collectors. 4. Lower demand, lower efficiency correlates to lower value, higher prices. This is where niche industries come in, the underground kind of stuff like handmade items or artwork. Most of the time, the prices are irrationally increased due to the niche nature of the industry. This further buries the industry or product by making it only exclusive to very particular individuals who have a taste for such things, usually very rich people. The industry could never survive large scale, however, and is something that only very select few people could ever hope of making a living at, regardless for their passions for it. Ranching, small scale farming, glassmaking, any old trades comes to mind. Even if they were to pick up demand like with organic produce, they have to increase production to meet demand and cut down on quality, or stay stagnant within their very niche area and hope not to be exterminated by other far bigger entities that just want a brand. All in all, a Jupiterian-based economic system, in order to be self-sustainable, has to maintain two of these four different economy types. 1 and 2 being the types that we fluctuate between on a large scale. The other two can be considered as gimmick economies that can never be of true use to anyone. As stated earlier, a Jupiter based economy is based on a tug of war between an unstoppable force and a movable object. As I've demonstrated, the unstoppable force is demand, and how demand and value can be used to grow and never stop growing. Whereas efficiency and prices can be manipulated to be pulled along with growth, constantly feeding into it. In the economy's best interest, the tug of war becomes a tag along, where the only objective is progress and growth at all costs. But, using a marriage as an example, it's like both parties are constantly trying to pull away from one another, neither side wanting to go with the other, but one inevitably giving in to the force of the other. As we all know, just as the weight of price becomes too much and finally pops value's bubble, this usually ends in a divorce, and divorces are very good at doing two things: destroying families and decimating wealth. That's why it's good to ask the question: progress, but towards what? And how do we stop it from going bad? You can't. It's working exactly as it's supposed to. It's an economy designed to go to high highs and crash to low lows, as it directly correlates with Jupiter's dichotomies of greed and abstinence, though with the caveat of breaking the border of inversion as it crashes, which in Chaldeanism is a very bad thing, becoming an act of anti-life and inducing a lame state. Now we'll go over the reasons why the Saturnian-based economy is my ideal type. Higher demand, higher efficiency. Correlates to lower value, higher prices. This is the shoving match in the ideal state in a Saturnian-based system. As demand increases, it forces value down on efficiency, forcing efficiency to meet the demand in as effective way as is possible. This is inverse from the other in that businesses are incentivized to focus on making products and services as effective as possible, saving on time, space, and energy to force back the price collapse. This induces higher quality, long-lasting items, reduces the desire for marketing, and promotes ways to fulfill the demand of a market without producing anything, like not using additives. It hypothetically also promotes recycling and reuse as much as possible. If I had to think of a downside, probably not a lot of room for large wealth transfers. At least not in the way that we do it now. Number 2. High demand, low efficiency. Correlates to lower value, low prices. This would happen if efficiency couldn't meet demand and the price got squashed to baseline, equals no profits can be made. This would theoretically collapse a market, but I think one of two things would happen. Either it does and demand would be forced to readjust itself because it no longer has anything to feed on, allowing the market to take a hibernation period to recoup, re-strategize, and restructure itself, or it causes a breakthrough in innovation, forcing an evolutionary response to the issue at hand. Number 3. Low demand, high efficiency. Correlates to higher value, higher prices. This would be a state where either the demand has been met and now the market is incentivized to reduce its efficiency so as to not price itself out of the market. It's logical for a business to de-escalate and de-evolve itself to better adjust its prices back to a more sustainable model, quite possibly bringing back old trades that were previously thought defunct and useless after the Industrial Revolution. Low demand, low efficiency. Correlates to higher value, low price. the market dies, is depleted. Either that or it's a rarity market that caters to niche groups. Unlike its counterpart, which has to scale to survive, this economic state either allows for a peaceful death that has served its purpose or a de-evolution process that further promotes smaller scale trades and businesses to take root, filling the ecosystem and allowing for economic potential from even the poorest beginners. As a side note, I don't know how rarity will work out exactly. Depending on exactly how price is set, it could be extremely expensive and niche, with value increasing its price. This could be a major drawback in that it incentivizes hiding resources from the public. So, from my perspective, a Saturnian based system has flexibility, whereas a Jupiterian system can only go either up or down. The biggest thing about a Saturnian based system is that it allows for de-evolution and de-escalation. It has a natural hibernation period. It allows for death to naturally take its place peacefully. It promotes natural growth and development. It gives a bone structure that is adaptable and malleable as needed in the current environment. It seeks to have the opportunity for anyone to gain wealth as needed where needed. It's a system that is less focused on growth and more focused on strength. It's a system that puts smaller businesses above larger businesses because larger businesses are naturally less efficient. It promotes individuality to improve and protect the collective, not exploit and dehumanize the individual for the collective. It also promotes a meritocracy, pushing for the competent to rise to the heads of society's industries rather than allow for the incompetent to take their place by generational wealth transfer and unfair and destructive business practices. If I had to guess, this system also disallows extreme inflation and deflation, allowing for a more flatline and gradual economic growth pattern that gradually climbs up rather than a bipolar boom-bust cycle. The only bad thing about this system is that I don't believe it allows for extreme wealth transfers. That's the only thing I can think of that and reduced growth. But hey, that's the main feature. All in all, where Jupiter, oddly enough, promotes growth through greed and fear, Saturn promotes strength through prudence and purpose. See what happens when you respect the lords in their proper domains. Anyway, thank you, dear listener. If you like the video and my writing, I suggest checking out my library on Facebook through Google Cloud. My book, Warren, is a set of stories placed in the world of Warren and heavily influenced by many different ideas and beliefs that I hold in both high regard and close to my heart. I hope it entertains and moves you just as it did for me. Again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to lecturing you again in the next video. Bye.